All right, so when you go in the pyramid, you go down here, you go underground. They were digging this out. In fact, a lot of these tunnels down here were half dug. You can see the marks where they were still digging them out. Nothing was put there. We think that originally they were going to put the pharaoh down here, the dead pharaoh, but they changed their mind and they created these rooms up here while they were building it. So these were built into the pyramid as they built up level after level. But then they go in, this is what's called the Queen's Chamber, this is the King's Chamber up here, this is the Great Hall as you go in here. And when you get up here, you see they have these shafts that come out. These shafts are not big, you can't crawl through them. They're about this size, okay? So there's no way you could crawl through them. We call them ventilation shafts, but they don't really, we think, even make the end. Nobody's found them where they come out here. They go a ways here, and then they are blocked. They sent some robots up in there to find them. But what's interesting is that angle is very exact. And this angle, remember, this is to the north now, to the right. This is north on this side over here, south over here. And this side is lined up with Orion's belt. Well, Orion is a Greek constellation. We accepted all the Greek constellations. But this constellation was very important to the Egyptians too. In fact, this was the constellation of Osiris. And Osiris was the god of the afterlife. So pointing right to the belt of Osiris was very important. This one points to the star Thuban, which is in the constellation of Draco. Thuban was their pole star. Like we have Polaris as our pole star. 4,000 years ago, because these were built around 2500 BCE, the pole star wasn't Polaris, it was Thuban in the constellation of Draco. It wasn't quite exact, it was off by about a degree, but this angle is off by about 1 degree from the North Celestial Pole, so it would point exactly to Thuban. So that star was very important to them. So the Great Pyramid, which was built about this time, had stellar alignments in the ventilation shafts. And there's actually 2 of them coming out of the Queen's Chamber here. You see them, they don't go very far, but they were lined up exactly too. This one points to the star Sirius, which to the Egyptians was the star Isis, the brightest star in the sky, which is very important to them because Sirius rising just before the sun, what we call a heliacal rising, would signal that it was time that the Nile was going to flood. This one over here points to the star Kochab, which is in the Little Dipper, which is one of the important stars for lining up the pyramids with their cardinal points north and south. Okay, you don't need to remember that, but do remember these two, to Thuban and to Orion's belt or to Osiris. All right, another one we're going to talk about, and we spent a lot of time on this in my Archaeoastronomy class, because these people were very sophisticated. This was the Mayans, the Maya people, which lived in Central America. They were around from approximately 200 BCE to around 1500 CE. The truth is they never just went away. In fact, even now there are descendants of the Mayan people in the mountains of Guatemala and down in Central America that have direct lineage to the Mayan people. But by the time Cortez showed up, which is when we start to get our modern record of this area here, which was a little bit in the middle of the 1500s, okay? The Mayan people had pretty much, where their culture was descending and their empire was going away. They were the strongest empire, and their heyday was around 1200, was when they were at their biggest, most conquest area, okay? By the time the 1500s came along, the Mayans had fallen down, but the Aztecs further in, over where Mexico City was, were the great people at that time. Okay, but this is in the Kukulkan. This is the temple of Kukulkan, which was their god, what they call the feathered serpent god. This area here, these ruins are in what's called Chichen Itza, which is on the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. But the alignments here are very interesting because you see they built this pyramid temple kind of thing here. And on each side of these they have a staircase. But each of these staircases has 91 steps. Done deliberately because for times 91 is equal to 364. Plus 1 for the top step up here makes 365. The Mayans were very aware of the calendars. They had an elaborate calendar system. They had a triple calendar system, which is very complicated. That would count days. It was actually more accurate than ours because ours gets confusing with every time you have leap years and all that. It's like if I said right now, okay, how many days ago was March 4th, 2007? Well, you'd have to figure out how many years and then how many leap years and all that to try to figure it out. To them, it's like, no, we just keep counting how many days there are. We don't worry about the years and the months part. So they had a much more elaborate system. Also, they have this lined up so you see there's a serpent's head here. And on the equinoxes, sunlight would go over here and cast a shadow on the edge. That makes this look like a snake. And then as the sun would set, it makes it look like the snake is going down the staircase, and the snake goes off to one of their wells, which is where they got their water. They called them a cenote, and it would bless the people. The feathered serpent would bless the people on those days of the year. That would occur around the equinoxes, March 22nd and September 22nd every year. This is in the same area, because it was a whole city there. This is an observatory they built here. Now you see it's all falling down. In fact, this is falling down too. The other side is not nearly as good as this. We went and visited it. And I'm like, oh, it looks great. And I went around to the other side and no, it's kind of falling apart. They make this side, they kind of redid this side to make it look good, so all the pictures come from the same side. Over here, this one, up here there's windows in the top. This was an observatory specifically to look at the planet Venus. How do we know? Well, the good thing about the Mayans, like the Egyptians, they left us written language. And there are glyphs of Venus, and we have books where they were calculating the position of Venus over many years. And they would mark and watch this position, and they were obsessed with the planet Venus. Much more so than the moon. They weren't really obsessed with the moon like some cultures did. Their calendars, none of their calendars were based on lunar calendars. Unlike Hebrew and Islamic and all that were all based on lunar calendars. So it was a very different type of view there. But spent a lot of time talking about the Mayan people in the Archaeoastronomy class. This is actually an Aztec calendar, which shows similar to that. In fact, I think the Aztecs actually took it from the Mayans, who may have taken it from another people, and kind of just made it their own, kind of like Rome took the Greek gods and just changed the names. The Aztecs took many of the Mayan things because they came later, and they just had their own names for them. And these are the number of days, and they have a complicated system because they had a base 20 system instead of our base 10 system. And they would have 13 months of 20 days, or 260-day calendar, but they also had a 365-day calendar, and all those would only come together about every 52 years. Which was about the life expectancy, so you would live through what they called one calendar round. And so the calendar became very, very important to these people. And the Mayans believed everything was cyclical. Every time you had a cycle, like the sun would go set, the sun would die every night and be reborn every morning. At the end of their cycle, their calendar round, the gods would grant them another calendar round. They would have 52 more years. And that's the way they believed these things worked. Now, we see these things also in the Native Americans. This is what's called medicine wheel. This is in Wyoming. We are not sure exactly when this was built because there was no written language, nothing to tell us that. All they did was move rocks around that were already there. They just moved them into this pattern. And so you can't date the rocks. You can't really date much. So we think anywhere in the 1800s was when it was built. Now the Native Americans from that area, to them that was ancient too. The ancient people left this for us. But you would go there on very special days of the year, and so it was like a spoke system. But then these circles have very specific meanings. You see how they're very special spots. And then there's one separated from the thing. These are all right on the edge. This one is separated further out, but that one's the key one, because if you're here looking right over this direction here is the summer solstice sunrise. And so they lined it up with that pattern. We think these actually correspond with the rising and setting positions of different stars. So we think it was an astronomical setup. What they used it for and how they used it, we don't know, because there was no written record and there's not much archaeological evidence to really give us any idea of what they used it for. But we see these, and we see these medicine wheels kind of throughout that area, Wyoming, Montana, all the way up into Alberta, Canada. That region of the United States, currently the United States, was where they would build these medicine wheels. And so this one particularly has the summer solstice sunrise alignment. All right. And here it is, again, standing, looking at that one that's off of the edge further. This is your alignment right here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's mountains over here, but there's the sun rising at that time. All right, and that's all we're going to talk about in this class for archaeoastronomy sites. Know those few sites and why they were important.